better than you.
Oh, you know something, big brother? I'd have to disagree with you on that one.
Here I am, in the place to be. Mr. K&B, you can't fuck with me. Extra sexy, extraordinary. Palms are hairy, your mama pop. What up, y'all? K&B the Sexy Ninja here with the one and only Kevin Eastman. Welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm doing great, thanks. Nice to be here with you.
So I'm just going to knock it right out the bat. I had this question on my mind. Why is it so hard now for them to do the turtles in the suits, the rubber suits?
I think it probably comes down to a cost thing, I'm guessing, because the such major strides and improvements in CG animation and the more affordability to it. When you have the guys in suits, especially having gone through that with the first three movies, it was besides these guys were absolutely fantastic athletes. The stunt guys, specifically for movie one, were wearing 80-pound suits, latex. They had to be full body cast. The pieces were made to fit their body specifically. They could do about 60 seconds, 90 seconds of work before they had to sort of cool them off. They literally had this, it was like a hair dryer that blew cold air. They'd have to put this thing in their mouth and blow it. They could only see out front of the mask. It was phenomenal on every level what they did. And in fact, when we fast forwarding to some of the early discussions before the 2014 movie, the original Gilbert producers I was working with were talking with Brian Henson, Jim Henson's son, who still runs Creature Shop, about doing a hybrid of part suits with computer enhancements to help with the acting and some of the other stuff. But it just it didn't come together. They ended up going all CG, and it is what it is. But yeah, it's I think it's a cost thing, to be honest.
Yeah, and with the movie, the 2014 movie, I kind of really digged the designs just because, a lot of people were like, oh, well, they're turtles. They're listed. I was like, yes, but mutant is in the name. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So there's that aspect. I would say current Ninja Turtles, what would you say is your favorite version so far of the Ninja Turtles?
And as far as movies go, or
movies, or the animation show that just dropped?
Well, I'll go, without a doubt, hands down, the first Turtle movie was the best. And that was the high water mark to all other things should have it's aspired to. I particularly liked, after that, a sort of bigger budget animation Turtle event would be the 2007 Kevin Monroe movie, which I thought was really well done. Great story, great animation. And I love the style of the Turtles. And then, animation again, I would go to the 2012 animated series. So I like the original cartoon series, don't get me wrong. But as far as some of the newer stuff, I thought that the Nickelodeon 2012 series was really powerful because it was written for both audiences, the older audience as well as the newer audience. So they had the comedy as well as the kind of the in jokes and stuff like that for a bit of an older audience. But I was brought in to consult on the 2014 and 2016 versions, and it was my recommendation was, I understand the style they wanted to go for. We actually did a comic kind of in that style, a more realistic version of the Turtles back in the day. But I said, don't make them 7 feet tall and don't make them bulletproof. The awesomeness of being teenage mutants is that they're teenage mutants, and you want to root for the underdog that has to struggle and work hard. You Luke Skywalker, you're Sarah Connor. These people that have to rise up to beat some immensely evil thing. And if you're already 7 feet tall and bulletproof, it kind of anyway. But that's I loved, there was a lot of parts of the 2014 2016 movies that were great, like seeing Bebop and Rocksteady on the big screen for the first time was fantastic.
Oh yeah, and that play. I remember when Bebop and Rocksteady came onto the screen, and I'm a big wrestling fan, so Sheamus playing one of the characters, I was like, "Oh, that's awesome!" And my daughter had a question for you, and she wants to know, with all the turtles, if they all loved horror movies, what would be their favorite horror movies individually?
Boy, that's they are big fans of horror movies, and they are in particular fans of the classics. And in fact, it was great that Playmates Toys actually even made a version of each of the turtles, not only as Star Trek figures, which was awesome, but they made them as Universal Studios monster characters. So we had one of them as Frankenstein, one as Dracula, one as the Mummy, one is the Creature from the Black Lagoon. So I think because Splinter's a fan of the classic horrors movies, the black and whites, and some of the early colors. So I think they'd lean that way. Of course, fast forward into something that's a little bit more um, horror / thriller. Big fans of the Aliens movies, especially Raphael and Michelangelo. They like the newer Aliens movies.
Oh, that's awesome. And going back to the 2007 animation movie, I heard that there was going to be sequels to that. And one of the stories they wanted to do was like Michelangelo being the only one, and then everyone going back to regular being turtles because there's a serum that brought them back. Was that kind of like based off the Last Ronin story or something like that? Because I just found that connection like really interesting, like Michelangelo being the last one in that potential sequel that never happened.
No, it's an interesting idea. We had actually done a version of that in a cartoon show, which was fun. Actually, even did a version later, which had Donatello came up with a cloaking device that made him look human, and so they could walk around in high school and more human stuff. There was a comic story that done back in the original Mirage days, which had a reversion mutagen where they regress back not to human form but to turtle form. So it was definitely a combination of both. But no, Last Ronin was always intended and written as it was, because the original story was written in 1987 before any cartoons or any movies or anything else came. Pete and I wrote it in '87, and then it wasn't able to get done for that's 1987 is literally when we started working on the cartoon show and the movies. So we never got around to it until 2019 when it was put together, and then finally came out in 2020. So, but no, the Last Ronin there's similarities with other stories and similar threads that you want to explore with this. Last Ronin is pretty specific into itself.
Yeah, and with the Last Ronin, I enjoyed it so much. I can't wait for more with the Lost Years and everything like that. Was the goal always to introduce a next generation of turtles?
Yes, yeah, it was something that Tom and I had discussed early on. It was not in the original 1987 outline that Pete and I had. Which is why it's almost two separate things, if you will. If you read Last Ronin, especially the collected, the story of the Last Ronin ends very specifically the way we wanted it and designed it, and then the furtherance is having April remain alive and have some of the mutagen from the original TCRI canister. She has Michelangelo's blood. They have Splinter's journal to train them. They have a legacy, so it is something that is a separate. It's a new beginning. It's a separate story. So,
yeah. For sure. Do you ever think we're going to see that in animation form or a movie potentially down the road? Because I would love to see that as a series.
Me as well. And it's been kicked around as a concept with Nickelodeon. Even Cyril Neely, who did the just such a wonderful job on the 2012 animated series that ran through 2017. He's spoken with some of the bosses over at Nickelodeon about adapting Last Ronin into a similar style to what Warner Brothers did with when they adapted Frank Miller's Dark Knight. It was a more edgier animated concept for the older audience. They adapted Dark Knight and Red Hood and Batman Year One, and so many, which was great. And they even did a Turtles Batman crossover based on that DC comic series, which was edgier. So it's been discussed, but right now, Nickelodeon, Paramount, everybody's really focused on what Seth Rogen is going to release as a turtle film. That's a much younger audience turtle film, and that's coming out later this year. So.
Have you seen any like concept art that you said like, okay, I approve that, or is it just mostly Nickelodeon and Seth?
It's all Nickelodeon. They own, Viacom owns the Turtles and have for, I sold my rights probably 15 years ago ish. They brought me in to consult on the comic series and some of the other stuff. But it's mainly, respectfully, they're just a great company, and they really kind of thoughtfully said, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? And my heart and soul has always been in the comics, so I spend all my time there. But I've talked to them about other things that they're doing. But with Seth Rogen, it was he's a great producer, he's a great actor, really enjoy his films, and he had a vision, and so they basically, here you go. It was not too dissimilar to what Kevin Monroe did in the 2007 movie with the Maji. It was Kevin wrote it and directed it, and I had a couple meetings with Kevin, but I knew him personally as a friend beforehand for some of his creativity. Some of the stuff was really fantastic. So I've seen very little, but I'm excited to, it's almost at this point I'm excited to just go. I want to be sitting in the theater with everybody else, watching what it is when it comes out, and that's pretty cool.
That's awesome. So I like to give the guests the last minute to plug whatever you like, whatever you want, just where everyone can go and follow you.
Oh, sure. No, great. We're just getting ready to kick off our 2023 tour, starting mid-March in Kansas City. But if you go to KevinEastmanStudios.com, it's my main website, my main fan site, which you can find out tour dates, where we're going to be. I think we're doing about 13 shows this year, as well as the latest news on, anything else we're doing. I've been doing a lot of design work for the NECA is doing a line of toys based on the original Mirage Studios comics. I've been doing a lot of stuff with them. They're great. So yeah, just any bits of news or information or what I'm up to or where you can find me, or if you want to drop me a note, you can send me a note there. So KevinEastmanStudios.com. Be there, be square.
Exactly. It's a great website. I've checked it out plenty of times. I know you have a lot of auctions and stuff that goes on. Thank you so much for joining me here for the Sexy Ninja Cast. I appreciate you. And thank you again.
My absolute pleasure. You have a great day. Great chatting with you.
No problem. And remember, like and subscribe and stay sexy, ninjas.
Cowabunga.
Cowabunga.
Welcome to the wicked shit. Oh, yeah.